Hey, so I wanted to talk today about the Retroid Pocket Flip 2. Retroid just announced some new data, some specs. Now, while we do not have the pricing yet, we do have now the specs of the machine. And surprise, there are actually two different SKUs coming out. I don't know why I'm surprised because this is a normal pattern. With the Retroid Pocket 5, the Mini appeared. With the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, the regular appeared. So I don't know why I'm surprised, but there is two SKUs here. Now, what are the differences between the two SKUs? Well, that's what I wanted to talk about today because there's some slight differences you may not be aware of. And while we don't know pricing yet, I'm hoping that there is a price difference between the two, and especially because there is some things that I think are going to make one of the CPUs more attractive than the other one. Anyways, remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode of our content. But let's dive in and take a look in depth at the upcoming Retroid Pocket Flip 2. Okay, so let's start with the colors. They've announced 4 different colors. I don't think it's a big surprise here. Maybe it is for some of you, but we have the black colorway. No big surprise there. We do have the GameCube colorway, which I think was very popular on the Retroid Pocket 5. It's the color I went with. We also have what I thought was green, but is actually an ice blue color. And then we have the US 16-bit color. Now, Retroid has been conducting a poll on both their Twitter and their Discord to kind of gauge interest and see which color is coming up the most popular. And so far, even though the poll still has another 20 hours or so to go, the ice blue has been winning. Now, personally, I'm agreeing. The ice blue has been calling to me. Now, maybe we'll see different colors. Retroid in the past has done this. They have shown some colors and then changed them before release. So again, be cautious. We're not sure if these are the final colors or not, but I think they're pretty attractive. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. So while we still don't know pricing, let's talk about these specs. And first, before we delve into that CPU difference, because there are two different CPUs, it looks like between the two SKUs that pretty much everything is equal. We do have the same RAM. Now that is good. And it's the same 8 GB RAM that we saw in the Retroid Pocket 5. So that is actually very favorable. It also has 128 gig base storage. We've got the same screen. It's a 5.5-inch 1080p AMOLED running at 500 nits. So we expect that this is the same AMOLED screen we just saw in the Retroid Pocket 5, which is a beautiful screen. It can also do video output on the running through the dock or USB-C DisplayPort 1080p at 60. We've got Wi-Fi 6 in both. Now there is a bit of difference. Bluetooth 5.2 is on the Dimensity chip, and Bluetooth 5.1 is on the Snapdragon. That's likely because the Dimensity chip is a little bit newer. They're both running Android 13. They both have 5,000 milliamp hour batteries. The charging speed is quicker on the Snapdragon. It's got a 27 watt maximum charge speed, where you're limited to 18 watts on the D1100. They do weigh the same and they are the same size. So again, very minimum specs there between the two as far as non-CPU stuff goes. All right, moving on, thanks to Nano Review here, we do have a direct comparison between the Snapdragon 865 and the Dimensity 1100. And so let's start looking at this. And you can see from the CPU performance, they get an identical score. So these CPUs are both 8-core processors. They're going to have a CPU outcome that's it's identical, nearly the same. Now, they deviate here on the GPU, okay? The gaming performance is a little bit rated higher on the Dimensity 1100. Now, the Dimensity 1100 is a newer chip, so that's not too big of a surprise there. Battery life is going to be nearly identical, a little edge to the Dimensity, probably because it's on a smaller node. And then the overall score is a dead tie. It's 48 for both of those. This leads us to ask the question, why?
Why? Why? Why? Why? Why? Why?
This leads us to ask the question, why? So You might be wondering, why would they offer two choices that, according to these metrics right here, are identical in pretty much ways? But wait, they're really not. There's more to the story here. And this is why I wanted to talk to you about the differences here we have in the Snapdragon. And the biggest difference, and most probably obvious to many people, are the driver support. So we have these awesome custom drivers called Turnip drivers that are available for the Snapdragon CPU. They're not available for Dimensity. We also have a different GPU. We have Adreno versus Mali, and the Adreno is just better supported overall. So you've got a competitive edge there from the GPU. Now, while a lot of retro emulation, especially older emulation, doesn't really rely on the GPU, some of the newer stuff, the stuff that's higher emulation that you want to play, most certainly will. So we have a huge advantage here when it comes to the GPU. Now, this may not reflect in the scores, but remember, these scores are not for retro gaming, which is the focus of what this handheld does and our channel does. So for that reason, that is a significant, but there are some more differences. As we scroll through and look down at the differences here, we can see that the Antutu score comes up in a dead heat. Okay, Antutu is a pretty good metric to compare different scores, and we're getting a 750,000 or so range for both of them. So not a significant difference, but if you dive deeper and look at the difference between the two, you will see where that GPU has a significant score difference between the two, as well as the memory that it clocks with. So again, there is a little bit of a difference there between the two. And single core and multi-score, again, we're getting really close dead heat sort of, similarities. We move on to the wildlife performance and the 3D Mark, and Dimensity starts to pull ahead a little bit. Okay, it's a newer CPU running on some newer graphics, so we do have a little bit of difference there. You can see some of the games here that they tested: Call of Duty Mobile, dead heat; Fortnite, pretty much a dead heat. And so there's not a lot of difference when it comes down to it. So what are the differences in the cores? So we do have in the Snapdragon, we have one Cairo 585 Prime, three Cairo 585 Golds, and four Cairo 585 Silver. So between the little and big architecture, that's how they're divided there, with that really high clocked one Cairo 585 Prime, which really pushes the CPU. The Dimensity is divided in half between big little. We have four A78 cores and four A55 cores, which produces a lot of good emulation for what we're looking to do on these. They're both ARM-based chips, and the frequencies are pretty close, with the Snapdragon topping out with that really massive top core on there. The Dimensity is on a newer 6 nanometer fabrication. We got 7 nanometers for the Snapdragon. So we're also, the TDP is 4 watts on the Dimensity and 5 watts on the Snapdragon. But again, as we look at the GPU, this is where we really see it stand out. Now, the GPU is running at a higher frequency for the Mali, which would make you think that it's going to perform better. But when you look deeper, you start seeing the shading units and the total shaders. And the Snapdragon is dominating there with the shading units and shaders. And I love adding shaders to my retro games. And so I think for that reason, plus the Turnip drivers, we just have a massive ability here for the Snapdragon to move ahead. Now, that's not to say that somebody couldn't come along and develop for Dimensity and improve it, but guys, it's not a popular chip, and I don't expect that to happen. So that kind of gives you an idea overall of the differences between the CPUs here. It comes down to the GPU, I think. It looks on paper better from the Dimensity, but once you factor in the shading units, the support for the community, the drivers that it has, you just get a better picture for the Snapdragon. So I'm expecting Retroid to charge a little bit more for the Snapdragon than the Dimensity, but again, we don't have pricing, and that remains to be seen. Hopefully, we'll get some more of this information soon. Ted, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to take a moment to talk about our sponsor today, AliExpress. Our friends at AliExpress recently sent us this Trimui brick charging dock. But wait, it gets even better. This charging dock also has a grip which fits into the charging dock as well. This makes it very versatile. It's magnetic, which means you can simply push and pull the dock apart to have the grip. So for very quick charging sessions, you can walk around and play with it or stick it back on the dock. It is so great. It also has color matching and it's made of good quality material. Hit the link in the description if you'd like to pick one of these things up for yourself. It is a must-have, I think, for anybody that wants to keep their magnetic charging dock with their Trimui Brick Smart Pro in check. Anyways, back to the video. Okay, so now we've seen the differences between the two CPUs, but there's one more thing, guys. One more very important thing that I think needs to be said here and should be considered when this goes for sale and you have to decide is Linux and support from custom firmware like Rocknix. We have that up and running on the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Mini on that Snapdragon chip. There is no Linux firmware, to my knowledge, for the Dimensity 1100. This is pretty big and significant to many of us. So if Retroid is charging a premium for the Snapdragon, please understand and consider that that is a significant difference between the two CPUs. You're able to dual boot and use both Android and Linux on this CPU. And unless I'm missing something, there's no reason to believe that that won't occur also on the flip. So I think that's another significant selling point. I hope that the Dimensity is a good bit cheaper. I'd like to see this come out at, $230, $240 for the Snapdragon. And can we get the Dimensity one out at 210 or maybe 199? I think that would be really, really good and significant. Now, there was some problems and issues with the original Flip. I never got a hold of one and I haven't reviewed one, but just from judging on the community and looking at the feedback I've seen, first of all, while I love the ice blue one, we know that transparent materials sometimes have issues with cracking. And because this is a flip, I don't know how confident they are. Maybe that's why we're only getting the one colorway that's transparent. But please keep in mind in the past, there's been some issues with that. Me personally, although I love the look of that transparent blue, green, whatever, I'll probably get the GameCube one to match my personal Retroid Pocket 5. So let me know, guys. What are you thinking? What did I miss here? Is there anything put in the comments? Anything I missed on the difference between the two of these? It's going to come down to the difference in Turnip drivers, the GPU, the ability to use Linux. Those are the big three things that I think are going to make the difference between the two. And when you see a price difference, now if these come out at the same price, I'm going to be surprised. So let's see what happens. Anyways, I'm really excited for this. I love clamshells. I'm still rocking the Miu Flip. It's still one of my daily drivers, even though it has a lot of issues. And of course, the AYRJGF SP34XX may be coming. So a whole lot more clamshells. Look at Magic X and what they're doing. They're bringing some more to market. So a lot of excitement with clamshells. But this Retroid has me excited. It's what I think people have been asking for. Give me the Retroid Pocket 5 in a flip form factor. That's what we're getting, guys. Go look at our review of the Retroid Pocket 5 if you haven't seen it or you haven't seen a Retroid Pocket 5. The gameplay is going to be amazing. You're going to get really good emulation up through PS2 and GameCube, and you're going to get decent Switch emulation. You're also, with Linux, going to get some Xbox. You're going to get some Xbox on there that you're not getting currently on Android. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, remember to hug your loved ones and love your hugged ones because tomorrow is never promised. Once we get a hold of our flip, we'll do our usual unboxing and impressions and our review. Anyways, stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you next time, Deadheads. Dead Fred out.